Good morning and happy new year to you all. So we're here at this coastal location today to hopefully capture some landscape photos, and that's going to be the main theme of the video today. So the wind and the rain was battering against my window all night. The forecast before I went to bed looked absolutely dreadful, and I was kind of thinking to myself all night, no, I'm just going to give it a miss. But I managed to get myself out of bed, drag myself down here, and I'm so glad I did because it's a lot calmer this morning. That wind has receded, the rain has stopped. There's some patches of blue sky dotted around, and I'm hopeful that we can capture some images today. Now, I'm going to be here right through until dusk, so I'm really going to try and make the best of it today, try to react to the conditions, and just see what we come up with. I'm sure there'll be some takeaways along the way. So yeah, I think it's time to get set up for my first shot because it's only about 15 minutes until the sun rises. So let's get set up. So I'm set up here and I'm being very mindful because I've already got a wet leg from a wave that come crashing over these pebbles here in the foreground. So I'm trying to position myself a little bit further back, and I'm using the 16 to 55 zoom lens, and I'm just zooming in on the landscape, on the cliff faces there in the background. The image is very much right-hand side heavy, so what I'm trying to do is time it so we get a couple of lines of swell coming through on the left-hand side, which I think just helps to balance it a little bit, and it helps to, I guess, make some patterns in the foreground as well, so it's not an even spread of light. So yeah, just maybe add a little bit of texture on that left-hand side, and I'm hoping then we can get some clouds in the upper left-hand side as well to add some texture there as well, so it's not just too much on the right-hand side. And we're pretty much bang on sunrise right now, so we're definitely not getting any light coming through from the underside of the clouds because yeah, there's a big bank of clouds sat to the east, so we're definitely not getting any light there. But what we are getting is that light coming through from the top as the sun is hitting that higher level cloud, and that's giving us some detail through the clouds. Now, this shot might work quite well as a black and white. There's lots of textures and tones within the image, and I think that's definitely what's in the forefront of my mind as I'm sitting here, or standing here, should I say, taking this image. So yeah, I think it's probably going to be a black and white conversion unless the sky kicks off and we get some amazing colour, which may or may not happen. But anyway, I'll take this image now, put it up, and then we'll see if we can make something else. There's some nice rock formations down here on the left that I think might work quite well. I don't think this is an amazing one to start the day off, but it's something, and that's the main thing. So I decided to stick with this composition. I just thought that I hadn't got the most out of it, and I just wanted to continue to shoot it over the next sort of 20 minutes or so. Now the sun is a bit higher up, it's above that blanket of cloud that we had over to the east, and we are now getting some light, which is quite nice. Some rays of light coming down, lighting up the sea here in the foreground, I think, which just adds a little bit more depth and dimension to the image. I felt it just looked a little bit flat before. We've definitely got a lot more contrast. It's rapidly changing. Every 30 seconds the scene looks completely different. So I think it's the right call. Stick it out, see what else we can get from this one shot, and then we'll move down there. I'm just thinking back to that last shot. I'm glad I stuck it out because initially it was not too good, and then after about 45 minutes the light was absolutely spectacular. So yeah, I'm really glad I stuck it out. I actually stood there for about an hour and 20 minutes in the end, just trying to make the best of it, as opposed to running around trying to make lots of different shots, just sticking with that one composition. And I think I managed to get the best out of it. I'm confident now that it's time to move on. And there's some boulders or rocks that stick out of the sea down here. There's 3 of them, in fact, and the waves are crashing over the top of them. And I'm thinking that might make quite a nice intimate shot, maybe black and white as the water's draining over the top of these rocks. So I'm going to be using some filters for this, I think. Set my tripod up down here, We'll see if we can make something interesting work. Just this little area here, just a bit of a vignette of the landscape, or seascape, should I say. So I've got my 6-stop filter on now. That's given me about something like a half a second or a quarter of a second, depending on the light. And that's just showing that motion as the water splashes over the top of these rocks and comes crashing down onto the pebbles. Now, I'm trying to make, I guess, quite a minimalist shot here. I'm a little bit undecided whether it's actually working out or not, but I'm giving it a go anyway. I like the configuration of the 3 different rocks. I think things work quite well in 3s, so that's good. I like how the waves come crashing over the pebbles in the foreground, so there's a bit of texture in the foreground. Gives it a little bit more context to as to where it is, so I think that works quite well. Conditions are quite overcast now, so it suits this type of shot, I think. And I think it works well as a black and white shot. These rocks here are very, very dark. The textures in the water as well work well, I think, for a black and white image. So whenever I'm thinking about black and white, I'm thinking about texture, shape and form. And I guess this really does suit it quite well. Now, I've got my camera set up in continuous low, and that's taking 3 frames per second. So when these waves come rushing through, because I'm at a third of a second, every second we'll get 3 frames. So that's quite handy. And we'll see what it turns out like. Now, I'm not 100% sure I like that last shot or not, but I was experimenting, and I think that's a great thing to do, isn't it? Especially when the conditions come overcast like this and you're perhaps not, getting the light you might hope for. It's about experimenting, trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. You could unlock something completely new, so yeah, it's always worth trying. Now, over the last 20 minutes or so, I've just been watching a pod of porpoise just offshore, about 30 meters, just feeding in this area. Absolutely fantastic to see. I did manage to get a couple of video clips. Hopefully they come out okay. I'll put those up now for you. But yeah, absolutely brilliant to see. And I definitely wouldn't have seen them today had I stopped at home. So I'm so glad I got out. Even if the photos today are all rubbish, I don't care, because seeing wonderful creatures like that in their natural habitat is just so inspiring, and I absolutely love it. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can make some more images down here. Now the tide's receding a little bit. I can just start to see a little bit of the beach appearing down there. So that means we're going to be able to move down the shoreline very, very soon and see what else presents itself. I've seen a couple of cormorant, some oyster catchers as well this morning. So maybe we can get a few shots of those perhaps if they stick around. So yeah, lots to think about, lots to shoot, I'm sure. Can't wait to see what the next couple of hours brings. So I spent the last hour or so trying to photograph some oyster catchers, and they were sat up on the rocks there, and it was very difficult to get separation. It was all kind of messy, and there wasn't a huge amount of light as well, making it very, very difficult. So I decided to come away from them. Maybe we'll go back to them a little bit later when the tide recedes and they go down to the shoreline to feed. So yeah, that's the plan. Now, what I'm thinking, because the tide's receded quite a bit since we last took the photograph of these 3 rocks here, we've now got some sand and the water is washing around these rocks. So I'm thinking wide angle lens, maybe a slowish shutter speed, about a quarter of a second. See if I can get down here quite close to the water, shooting handheld so I can be reactive. See if I can get a shot looking up the coastline there, maybe using these rocks as my foreground interest. So a little bit of a different take on what we took earlier. The reason I'm not going to use a tripod is because the waves have been very, very unpredictable this morning. Every now and again it's quite flat, and then all of a sudden we get, sort of 6 or 7 waves come in that are sort of within the sort of shoulder height range. So I want to be reactive. I want to be able to get out of here if possible, if I need to, because you might be able to see there's a big cave behind me, and I don't want to have to rush up into there trying to clamber over these rocks with my tripod. So yeah, that's the plan. I'm going to shoot this, I think, from around about here. So we've got these 3 rock formations and then looking back up towards the coast. pretty much as soon as I got set up down there, the tide receded over a sandbank, and then I only got a very short window of opportunity. I really wanted the water swirling around those 3 rocks there. I did manage to get a couple of shots, but I really didn't have enough time. And it's quite funny now, there's quite a few dog walkers that have come through this section of beach now. So yeah, I think it's probably time to move on. Thank you very much. So I had to admit defeat there at the beach because there were so many dog walkers and the wildlife was just flying off. So yeah, I abandoned that idea and headed for the pasty shop. Pembrokeshire pasties, the best pasties in the county. So I'm going to tuck into that, and then we're going to head to a different location. And I'm hoping this afternoon is going to be a little bit different. We're forecast some heavy rain and misty, foggy conditions. So I'm going to head to the Woodland to see if we can make a few images there before we lose the light. But anyway, more importantly, let's get into this pasty and start 2025 as I mean to go on. Delicious. So the rain clothes are on, and I'm determined to make an image or two this afternoon. Now we've got about an hour and a half of light left, and the visibility is meant to be dropping over the next hour or so. So I'm hoping that we'll get that claggy, misty conditions. And at the minute, you know, it's just quite clear. It's very damp, very wet, very atmospheric, but it's quite clear. And I need it to be a bit more of a dense fog to really make the location that I'm going to work. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. I'm going to walk down to the location, see if I can make a composition, and then hopefully that fog will come in as it says on the forecast. But as you know, forecasts can often be wrong, can't they? Let me just give you a wipe. There we go. It's properly raining right now. So I think I found a composition here looking through these spindly oak trees. Now, these oak trees are quite short. They get battered by the westerly winds coming off the sea here, and they're all spindly and gnarly. There's lots of vines and ivy hanging off them as well, which is quite nice. Now the shot I've got in mind is peering through this one in the foreground, and there's a nice arrangement, a nice set of trees in the background. So I'm using this natural frame in the foreground to look through. Now, ideally, I would have liked a little bit more fog, but you know, you're working with the conditions you're given, aren't you? And I'm going to try and make this work. It's quite dark right now, but I'm going to have to set the tripod up because I'm probably going to be working at around about a second in terms of exposure. Now, there's not any movement in the leaves or anything like that, so that's absolutely fine. There's not a breath of wind now. So I am hoping that the fog is going to roll in, and it's just going to help soften the transition between the trees that we've got here and the rather bright sky. So yeah, let's get set up and see if we can make a shot here. And hopefully the conditions will improve as I get things set up. So we've got the composition framed up. I've gone for a vertical orientation. I'm really using this tree in the foreground as that natural framing element. Now, could this shot be better? Absolutely. I think if we had more fog, more diffusion, it would really help that transition in the background there. But we don't have that, but we do have some quite atmospheric and wet, damp conditions, which is accentuating these mossy branches in the foreground and these vines that are creeping up it. So I do quite like that. There's some nice leaf litter on the floor as well. This may be one to revisit. Time will tell. We'll see if we like it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take this shot now before I get completely soaked and we lose the light altogether. What an amazing day. I've really enjoyed myself. Now, I think there's two takeaways from today's outing, if you will. I think the first being the pasty, obviously, a great start to 2025. But also, I think, you know, my mindset this morning was just stay in bed, it's going to be useless. And, you know, although we haven't got amazing conditions today, I did think we got some nice light. We saw porpoise, oyster catchers, lots going on down at the beach. Really enjoyed that. Probably found a composition here that I might want to revisit. So many takeaways. And had I stayed in bed, none of that would have happened. So yeah, just one thing you take away from this video, it's just get out there and give it a go, give it your best shot, because you never know what is going to happen. Anyway, I hope this serves as a little bit of inspiration to the start of the new year, and I hope that helps your photography in some way or another. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a like, because that really does help me out, and I really appreciate your time as always. If you really enjoyed it, there's another video up here that you might like as well. Anyway, until next week, take care, and I'll see you all very soon.